Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap. It is the 2nd of July. It is Tuesday. Big bounce back day for our utilities and our REITs, both showing very well here today. And good afternoon, Emily. Great to see you as well, Whitney. Hope you guys, everybody here had a great day trading. It certainly was an interesting day. Bulls kind of took this one, unless you were the energy sector. Energy really got hammered pretty good here today after that little weird fail of a break that we saw that sold off all day long yesterday. That momentum really continued, and it just intensified as the day went on. So a lot of selling over in the energy department. Other than that, kind of just a day. You saw a nice bounce back from McDonald's, always nice to see. But really, it feels like in a lot of ways, we know we have a short day tomorrow. We've got a day off on Thursday. Seems like nobody wants to get too crazy, so we're just kind of going with the flow right now. And for the most part, after the G20, the flow has been, hey, probably not going to tank, right? So, good afternoon, Micah and Linda, and welcome out, Lauren. Great to see you as always. So, taking a look at the S&P, it really was just kind of one of those days. We kind of started moving a little bit early in the trading day, and then everyone was like, nah. But we really recovered the second part of the day. And once again, the very last part of the trading day today, we saw pretty good sized candles across the board in our broad indexes. So looks like there was at least a little bit of traders buying in going into tomorrow's open. Of course, tomorrow we do have the short day closing at 11 o'clock for me, 1 p.m. Eastern, right? I got that right. So it's 11 in Mountain Standard Time. So it'll be a short day for us. Might be a theta play or two to capture the half day off of Wednesday and all day off of Thursday. And then strangely, we'll be back on Friday. That's a weird one. Middle week holidays are really weird. We'll see how strange it feels on Friday. So looking at the S&P, not a lot to see here other than, most importantly, holding that breakout. We weren't able to take out yesterday's high, but we were clearly able to close above that resistance. As you can kind of see in the development of this little hammer type of candle, there certainly was more pressure to the buy side than the sell side here today. So just a nice solid win for the bulls. Didn't go crazy, but another day above that resistance is a good day for the bulls, I guess, is a good way to put it. And good afternoon, Amy. Great to see you, my friend, as always. And hey there, Ilka. Great to see you as well, my good friend. Hope you are doing well, and all is good in your neck of the woods. On the Dow, same spot. It's almost like yesterday all over again. But unlike yesterday, that we really saw a lack of enthusiasm from the buyers, I think today we at least saw a little bit more. Yesterday was just kind of drift, a little pop at the end of the day. But today we saw a little bit more buying activity. Now we still have to get through this resistance on the Dow, kind of like we talked yesterday. If we can kind of get that 1-2 combo of upward movement on the SPY that's already broken out, followed by the breakout on the Dow Jones, that should be a little bit of a bullish signal, at least in my eyes, going into probably at this point now next week. So I was keep an eye on that resistance. Really not much has changed. On the Dow, we can look toward a little swing low down here. I don't know if we talked about this yesterday at about 26,460 as kind of a little bit of a support level if we see a little bit of selling to act as a potential support catalyst. Over in the NASDAQ, same story as the Dow Jones. Really, we're knocking on the door. We're a little closer on the Dow, but as you know, the NASDAQ can make up ground very quickly or lose ground very quickly for that matter. So we're really just kind of nestling just below that resistance level. So in the days to come, it doesn't necessarily have to be this week, especially if tomorrow is just blah, and there's a good chance that it could be, and then there's just one trading day left this week. Might be next week, but if we can kind of get the dominoes to tip a little bit, should be a little bit of short-term at least bullish movement if we can kind of line up the break confirmation on the SPX, break on the Dow, break on the NASDAQ certainly would be looking pretty bullish in the short term. Important to note, though, we still haven't broken on the Dow or the NASDAQ, holding on S&P though. And then over in the red, a little more selling over here. It had just such a great late week last week, as a little bit of selling here today. I guess that makes a little bit of sense. Overall, still kind of neutral. I think right now we have a little bit of a bullish bias within this neutrality. We've now created higher highs and higher lows. If we settle down into a pullback zone, which is possible, I have a hard time seeing how that could happen if the market's breaking out, say Friday. But if that happens, there might be something short term for us to look at here on the RUT. Overall, I'm still keeping it within this range, though. Of course, keep an eye on 16 to 1610. That range is going to be pretty darn important. It was kind of an interesting day in the sense that things didn't do anything, or they really went crazy. Good afternoon, Jimbo. Great to see you, my friend. Hope you are doing well and staying out of trouble. Over in materials, just basically yesterday, all over again. Dipped down, rallied up off of it, continuing to show some decent strength within this, but taking a little bit of a breather along with the overall market here today. Things are going to look very, very similar. Not a whole lot is going to have changed in this space. A little bit more upward movement in ECL. You still have air products kind of continuing off of that little break that it had. We did see on the other side of things, CC here really tank here today, a chemical company. So it's not everybody. They're testing, you can kind of see testing that old support. Fought hard, but boy, when it gave out, and that's a lot of volume on CC here. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows in the material sector, but for the most part, looking very similar to where it's been, still kind of in that breakout phase. Still, again, until I see signs to believe otherwise, I expect us to try to work up into this resistance zone. My big caveat there is if the market fails at resistance, it's going to be difficult, but you don't need me to tell you that. So if we can see some movement, I expect this to be an area that could potentially benefit. Not much has changed in my mind. As boring as it was in materials, it was pretty exciting in the energy department here today. Continuing, we saw that yesterday, right? We moved up and then really just all day long, just sold. Couldn't trust that as any sort of a signal. If we were thinking about it, at least did us a favor and established no upward momentum here today. A lot of bearish activity, pretty much top to bottom here within this sector here today. It's still a questionable place to try to be doing too much, in my opinion. Right now, it's still kind of in this choppy mess type of a place. We did see some pretty big movement from our old friends EOG. Ton of movement, down over 5% here today, but a lot of these charts, maybe it wasn't as big as 5% here for most of them, but a lot of these energy charts have the same type of look as that ETF. Oxy, from our reports this week, did push through that support level. Resistance does continue to hold here. Certainly one of the more interesting candidates to the downside in my mind. And I still am going to keep an eye on Chevron, but I'm going to be watching it even longer now because it sold off along with the rest of the market. You know, a bear call, if we get the break of this support, some bear calls above resistance for a short-term credit trade might be something I'll take a peek at. I want to see us give out support first, though. Not ready to do that just yet. I still think whatever side we're on, we do need to proceed with cautions in energy. It is basically doing a weird dance right now. And when things are being weird, I'm not afraid to put him into timeout, let him simmer down a little bit. Eventually, we will get a very good, clear signal, and that's the one we want to be looking for, in my opinion. So, you know, I'm really shy on either side of the equation right now, personally, on energy. Today really didn't do much to change my opinion. As a matter of fact, it probably put more into my cautiousness in energy. Over in financials, no real movement over here today, just continuing on the status quo. I thought an interesting chart developing in this sector, though, was Discover Financial. As you can kind of see here, really strong upward trend, had recently broken out. Let me zoom back here a little bit. Well, let's do this. Let's go to a weekly chart so we can paint the whole picture here. So before we had our sell in May, right, leading into that, you can kind of see we pushed to a pretty big all-time high type level of resistance. Things were going smooth, and then much like the rest of the market, really kind of sold off throughout the month of May. Unlike a lot of things in the market, it's not been a great recovery, but it really hasn't done much wrong either. It's just kind of been stuck really in this limbo range right here at this old price point. That makes sense, I think, at least when we look back historically and say, yeah, that was a big deal. At this point, we have to call that a failed break, right? It tried, but it failed. This is an interesting price point. What really caught my eye beyond that history that we have at this price range around $79 is if we can win that battle, there's really nothing ahead until we get into the old resistance level just shy of $82. So a little bit of room to maybe work with in there. I thought this was an interesting one to keep an eye on going into probably Friday. I don't really think I'm excited about any breaks tomorrow. I don't expect to be too ambitious in trading tomorrow. And good afternoon, Patricia. Great to see you. But really, it's more of the same. It really is more of the same in the financial sector. You also have MasterCard knocking on the door of resistance as well if we're looking for breaks in this space. Insurance continues to show well, of course, for the most part. And banks, as we kind of talked yesterday, back on track at least somewhat, certainly more into the neutrality and away from that bearishness, at least in my opinion, which really helps everything within the sector. Not a lot of great movement over in the industrials here today. We did see, a nice follow through on Lockheed. Certainly probably my favorite one these days, and has been for a little bit now, after kind of breaking through and sliding back here, really pushed right back through that here today. KTOS, another one from a report from 2 weeks ago, another little smaller size. I'm not sure if these guys are mid or, yeah, they're small mid caps. Broke out here, much like Lockheed broke yesterday, sold off as the market kind of did that dance all day yesterday. Really solid movement here today. So just a little bit again, and much like yesterday, just kind of not ready to take off, although some of those defense companies certainly look that way to me. Certainly breaking resistance is a good start, right? So it doesn't hurt if you want to see upward movement to break some resistance, but taking a little bit of breather. Of course, as you guys know here, I about typed in eBay, Jimbo. I just saw your comment there going to Boeing. Boeing really continuing to drag the ETF down a little bit. You also had HUN, after kind of hanging on their support level all last week and then gapping up with the market yesterday, pushing right into some resistance. So some interesting things going on in industrials. Still not a whole lot here has changed. We haven't really kind of done much to change my opinion. This still should be the support zone that holds for us. Our resistance, really the primary thing I'm looking at in the shorter term, is now $79 as that first level of resistance, followed by that $80 range. And as long as we hold this swing support from last week down here around 76 and a quarter, I think we'll be okay with looking from mostly a bullish perspective in the industrials. All right, Jimbo, now we're into tech. Now we can talk some eBay, although I think they're not in tech anymore. They got moved around when XLC became a thing, but we'll call them tech. So over in tech, though, just hanging out at that resistance level, not quite ready to break and run, but certainly fighting the good fight. We did see great follow through on Oracle after its breakout yesterday. Always love to see that. Always love to see that second day of follow through on our breakouts or breakdowns, right? The first day is really exciting, but that follow through day is really, really exciting. Certainly might be a little, past the breakout point, might be tough to make a risk to reward work, but some pullbacks, maybe that could develop in the days ahead of us. Certainly I'm continuing to keep a very close eye, or keep these guys in my watch list, I guess, as long as we're holding this after that nice little consolidation period. You saw some Adobe, continuing to work into some resistance. Apple, another one closing above that $200 barrier. Once again, kind of holding its own, played a little defense here today. eBay, let's go take a quick peek here. So eBay is a really interesting situation because they had this really sideways range. You know, they were down here not all that long ago, and I probably tweeted them out on the Tackle Trading. I know I was looking at them for a break to the downside. And of course, ultimately that support held and then broke to the upside. So Jimbo, in anything that's going to look like this, basically my support zone, you know, where we stopped going down, started going up, is, you know, the line in the sand, so to speak. And as long as this holds, do I want it to go drop tomorrow if I'm in eBay? Of course I don't, but I'm cool with it as long as that's able to hold for me. Double whammy here because we have the old resistance along with the swing support. Not a lot until we approach this resistance level. eBay isn't historically a tremendous mover, but they've certainly shown some strength here as of late. Not really much on the resistance run until we get to that swing high over on eBay. So a lot of reasons to believe, I guess you would say, on eBay right now. Taking a peek at the weekly because you always want to do that so we can get a little bit of extra perspective here. You can kind of see where we kind of topped out and we started that pullback. Yeah, that's me drawing a line, right? That's what you guys have grown accustomed to. We've got a little bit of price action here on days gone by. So this is going to be a little bit of a test, I would expect, at least for an eBay. If we can break through that, certainly a good signal for the bears. And with the overall strength of the trend, certainly have to believe we have a chance there, Jimbo. At least I would believe that we have a chance on a trend like that. So on the semiconductors, probably we're taking a quick peek at them here before we move on. Not a lot of great movement, but kind of in that pullback phase. The candles are not pretty, right? But kind of looking like it's in a little bit of a pullback phase. Want to see it establish some support. Maybe we can get some retracement opportunities next week in these semiconductors after kind of coming back around and working with the overall market. Let's quickly go into the healthcare, and then we'll look at our defensive ones together here today. Healthcare, just another good day at the office, much like eBay, Jimbo, same type situation. You know, we've got some support. We're in that upward swing. We got a little room to resistance. No real great reason why we don't continue overall that march. Straight up, we hope so if we're in it, but overall, as long as support holds, then we should be in pretty good shape. So a little bit of creeping to the upside here in the healthcare sector. You have to continue to like it. I do think we kind of want to keep an eye on this recent swing. We did see a pretty good pullback there, but like I said, we have a little bit of room between where we are and that swing high just above $94 to work within the sector. I know somebody brought up ABT and I caught the message after we had gone dark for the day. ABT, another one of those, just like the eBay. And I can't remember who brought it up. I saw it right after I closed down, but because there's a little delay on the chat that I get. But very much like the eBay, an all-time high, also our swing high, something we want to keep an eye on. But the trend and the momentum is certainly showing a tremendous amount of strength. And lastly, before we move into some of the more interesting ones here today, discretionary, just another solid day in discretionary. We're still fighting that resistance. If we can break through that, that's certainly a bullish signal. Certainly would call that a bullish breakout. Certainly would call it a little bit of a cup and handle, right? A little bit of a cup here, a little bit of a handle here. Of course, this is the all-time high on the ETF. So breaking above that would certainly be nice to see. Lots of interesting candidates in here, but we've been kind of talking McDonald's lately. Talked to them a little bit yesterday after breaking Friday, selling with the market yesterday. And this is where that intraday, you know, can help you get into trades a little easier. Hope this made sense and we can kind of revisit here to kind of see where we were. Kind of establish that little floor ceiling yesterday, right? Floor ceiling, downward trend. Broke out of the first ceiling right out of the gates, pushed through that second ceiling about the, you know, a little over a half hour into the trading day, and really were able to show some good momentum from that point. So when you're, you know, updating your triggers on trades that you're following or things on the report, you know, if the pattern is still there, right? And that was the key thing on McDonald's, is it was still sitting on that breakout point, right? If that pattern is still 100% still intact, we can kind of scrunch down into that intraday to get that, you know, an opportunity to get in if that's something that we would like to do. Just, this continues to be overall a strong area, still some weakness over in the retail, the urbans, and Kroger. I think Kroger hit a new 52-week low here today, the only S&P company to do so. So certainly some, dogs in there, but for the most part, it's been a pretty decent area. You had Starbucks break through resistance here today as well. A little bit of a consolidation after a really nice bounce off of its 50-day moving average. So continues to be strong. Watch that resistance level. If that can break, should be something interesting for us. Over on the staple side of things, really the market moved into, didn't really move out other than energy, didn't really move out of things today. It just moved into things. It felt like we saw money come back into staples. We've seen that upward movement off of that $58 range, continues to build up off of that. Nice to see it get back on the right side of those moving averages. That always makes me feel a little bit better personally. Not really a lot of resistance that we need to keep an eye on until 59.50 or thereabouts on the ETF. So continues to be an interesting area for sure. Money was going into staples, it was going into the utilities, and it was going into the REITs here today. Just like the staples sector, after kind of dancing on that old resistance level, that 50-period moving average, saw some nice upward movement. As you guys know, so often, especially on things like REITs and utilities, those sectors really run together, right? There's always somebody out there who's going the other way, but usually like SRE, or not SRE, the one of the REITs we always look at, the second one on my list, is always in a downward trend, and that's how I don't really want to go bearish on REITs. But there's, for the most part, we do move in similar fashion. And that's certainly the case here in utilities. So you're going to have lots of opportunities if you're interested from a bullish perspective, getting into this pullback. I believe SRE and XEL were both, XEL were both on the reports this week. There's going to be plenty of interesting utilities candidates if that is your cup of tea. SRE, that's who. No, I did it again. I'm thinking REITs, and it's actually utilities. So we'll find you in a minute. So a lot of decent movement. Some are going to look a little bit nicer than others, right? Some are going to feel like you have better risk reward. Some are a little deeper pullbacks, and there's really nothing wrong with a deeper pullback. It's just, I'm not the hugest fan of deeper pullbacks, although the risk reward tends to be a little bit better on the deeper pullback. So there's going to be opportunities if we're interested in this, in the utility sector, with the way that we saw the ETF move up here today. Started to really feel like the money's coming back in. And overall, nobody needs to sell anybody on the overall strength of the utility sector as of late, been particularly strong. REITs were the very, very similar, but even prettier of a candle. Now, we did smack right into that 20-day moving average on the ETF. So something, the last level that we want to keep an eye on, but a really solid movement. We looked at the hourly, or, whatever, I'm not sure, hour 15, but we saw that double bottom potentially forming on the REITs here yesterday. When we got that follow through, now we've got a little bit of momentum. We've reclaimed trend on the intraday, right? Whereas back in here when we were trying to, is this the bottom? Is this the bottom? Well, we had reasons to believe it might be, but we hadn't reclaimed the intraday trends, at least as of yet. So now we started to reclaim those trends. Continues to be a great area. SPG, that's the one. So SRE, SPG, I see how I can get so confused there. Bounce back day, but they're kind of the one who kind of stands out as the black sheep. Seeing AMT sitting on its 50-day moving average, certainly an interesting thing. Nice upward movement off of that long hammer that we saw on CCI here yesterday. So there's going to be opportunities in the REITs for us. Again, an area that, in my opinion, has earned us the right for us to look at it. Will we choose to trade it? Who knows, right? That's up to us. And of course, but with the overall strength of the utilities and REITs as of late, I think we owe it to ourselves to be open to trades in those areas when good opportunities do develop. So really solid day. And of course, I don't even count XLC, but it had a really good day. So I'm going to count it today. So after breaking and holding above that resistance level yesterday, really tremendous follow through here today. Now, the big one, in my opinion, is Disney knocking on the door of that breakout. Wasn't able to get there today. We'll see if we can get there here tomorrow. As many of you know, as many of you probably are also, been kind of watching this for a potential breakout, knocking on that door of that resistance level as we speak. So it should be an interesting, hopefully it's just a doji tomorrow and then we break it on Friday or something. But we saw some decent movement really across the board in this space here today. Still working into resistance on Facebook, still haven't reversed trend on Google, but have established a little bit of a swing low here. If we take out this resistance level, all of a sudden, it's a little bit of a different conversation. Certainly reversal characteristics, if nothing else, right? So something we'll want to keep an eye on in the days ahead of us. Disney is certainly the most interesting one here. You do have a charter knocking on the door of the $400 resistance zone, kind of an interesting place for it to be going on. EA, for any of you who did trade into that EA breakout, we're approaching resistance. We've got a little bit of room, got a little bit of resistance overhead that we might want to keep an eye on, but a pretty solid day across the board in most of the companies in the communication services sector. So it was an interesting day. You saw some movers and you saw some sectors just take the day off. The only thing that's really, showing, flashing, bear to me right now is the energy sector. It's been a little wonky. It's hard to trust, but it's certainly something that I think we have to be careful with if we're thinking anything on the bullish side. But quite honestly, I think you can make almost as a compelling case to the bullish side right now with where we are technically on so many of those charts. Over in the VIX, dropping down a little bit here today. Feels like the market is kind of comfortable with life right now. In the dollar, just kind of a day off. We saw this huge movement yesterday, right? And that was a pretty darn bullish candle that kind of, I'm not really interested in a bearish retracement when I see something like that gobbles up all of the resistance and moving averages in one fell swoop. Kind of took a breather here today. If we see some downward movement, I would understand the argument for going into it looking for a bearish retracement. I don't think it's here today personally, but I would get the argument for it, and I wouldn't want to be buying it during that time period. But just this movement, still we're in that downward trend, not interested as a buyer yet, but this is certainly something that I think can flip the dollar around and get us another run in the months to come back into that resistance level. So right now, still lower highs, lower lows. No reason to believe that this is the bottom, but that candle yesterday was a pretty darn big deal, potentially in my mind, certainly enough to keep me away from thinking bearish retracement opportunities myself. Of course, gold doesn't need much of a reason for buyers to get into it. We really had a day here. Came off of the intraday highs pretty good on gold, but really another solid bounce back day for gold as it just continues to be hot. I mean, the question or the problem, if you want to call it that, with gold right now is, it's moving fast, right? So we're not getting those nice mellow trade setups that maybe I would at least like to see. A lot of times we are having to go to the intraday. But as we've kind of said many times before, as long as it makes sense for your system and the charts got your back, whether it's intraday or whatever, I'm never going to argue against trading into gold right now. Silver in an interesting spot here today. It looked like we were going to have this big old bullish engulfing candle. Didn't close out that way. Top to bottom, we were able to eat up yesterday's candle, but weren't able to follow through. Still interested if we can get the right signal at this 15.25, 1520 zone. I don't think this candle is it, though. Personally, we are kind of working into this trend that's been pretty steep, but now it's kind of having an opportunity to catch back up. So we'll see where this one takes us. If we can get, some smaller body candles and then some upward movement, maybe there could be something worth looking at here in silver. But I don't think, for me at least, it's going to need at least a small body candle before I get there. And I don't know if I'm holding my breath on that happening. So natural gas, just another day of natural gas doing what it does best, and that's kind of drop overall. More downward movement here today. Don't have a lot of support until we work into this recent swing low. You guys all know the drill. Big breakdown. As long as we're below that, hard to be a believer in natural gas. Any bear plays, again, if they follow your rules and systems and you like the chart, I've got no objection to it. I would never want to buy anything in natural gas right now. Personally, I would always say sell as long as we're below that breakdown point. Luckily, we can be picky and choose when we want to get in. And lastly, over in crude, a lot of movement, bouncing between that 60 and 58 zone. I thought that, 58 broke. We kind of talked about it yesterday. That would be a bearish signal. I didn't think a tradable bearish signal. I wish I would have thought a tradable bearish signal, because when that gave out, we really saw more pressure to the downside. It was pretty ugly in crude, just like energy. Hey, good afternoon, Larry. Great to see you, sir. As always, I hope you're doing well. This is tough. You make an argument. We broke support. I don't disagree with it. We broke the 9. Don't disagree with that. We know that we've got some resistance that pushed us down, but at the same time, we have seen some reversals. For me, I'm just going into watch list mode on crude right now. See where we simmer down, where we establish some support levels. I do think, regardless of where we sit, we do want to look at this approximately $55 zone as a potential significant support level. So if we are bearish, certainly something I'd be keeping an eye on. If that gives out, certainly would give me a giant red flag. I mean, today's candle gives me a red flag. No reason to believe we're not dropping more tomorrow, in my opinion, at least according to the chart. But, I don't know where the trade is. Well, I want to see it kind of how it responds here, but certainly a big downward movement here in crude. Quickly, before I let you guys get out of here today, a couple of notes. We got Tesla. Coach T did a stock of the week on Tesla over on the Tackle Trading Instagram page. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, please do so. Don't be like me and I couldn't find the last page because it was so white. It was, the white little arrow moving button on the white screen. It's there. You probably don't need me to tell you that. I'm not particularly savvy with that stuff. Really interesting stuff, talking maybe some earning stuff on Tesla. So be sure to go check that out. While you're there, make sure to vote for who you want us to go over here going into tomorrow. We've got Uber, WWE, and Nordstrom's on the list. So get in there and make your vote count. We'll see who wins. I don't know. I think I'm going to vote for WWE. I'm a wrestling fan. I remember I took Coach T to a wrestling, but it's probably like 10 years ago now. I bought a whole bunch of tickets when WWE came to town, and had some extras. I grabbed Coach Tim. He didn't want to go, but by the time it was over, he really thought it was pretty cool. So I want to make him, I don't know if he's going to do it, but if he is, I want to get his take. So we talked to Disney on a bearish watch list. Certainly VMW here hanging out at that support zone, potential breakdown candidate. We looked at Lockheed and McDonald's, Sherwin-Williams, another bearish retracement here. Nice upward movement. Saw some more downward movement here today. Certainly could be on a bearish retracement watch list. I'm not 100% sure, Jimbo. And to be honest with you, I don't really care in the very short term. That's not, I guess, the way I think about oil or trading in general. In the, trading, investing, I think a little bit differently, of course, like everybody. But trading wise, I just care about the chart because the chart's not biased. The chart says, whatever the reason oil dropped today, maybe maybe I know, maybe we're completely insane and our answers are silly. But the chart's letting us know, hey, this is what happened, guys. So that's how I approach trading personally, Jimbo. I try to live in as much of a bubble as possible. It's impossible to live in a bubble, but I try to. So UAL, thought this was an interesting one just because of all the history at this $90. You can kind of see big top, big breakout, resistance, resistance, resistance. Here again, certainly anytime something's got that type of history, I think it's something I want to be taking a little peek at. We looked at Discover and Tyson. And lastly, this is probably at least going into next week at this point, but after that great run, really have gone a little bit sideways, working back into resistance. On the other side of things, we can make just the same case. Hey, if this support zone ever gives out around 75, very clear bear candidate. In my opinion there too. It's a little closer to the top than the bottom right now. Thought that was an interesting one, although probably going into next week. So ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do the market recap for today. But as always, thank you so much for joining me. It's always great to see you guys. Always it's great to talk trading with you, go through the routine. It's certainly more fun with you guys than on my own. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to those of you who catch the recording a little later in the day. We appreciate that as well. Over on Tackle Trading, we've got our coaches show here tonight, going over step system. That's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you get in there to all of our pro members. And of course, if you're not a pro member, we always invite you to head on over to tackletrading.com. We can get you set up with a free trial. You can come see what it's all about. The coaches show tonight probably going to be a pretty good time. Be sure, if you are new around here, to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Join us on Twitter at Tackle Trading. You can, of course, find me at FrankMartin23 on Twitter. Again, check out the Instagram. Go check out Coach T's video on Tesla. Really good stuff. I'm not much of an earnings guy myself, earnings option strategy guy, but he got me looking. I'm thinking I'm going to go take a peek at a Debicon there. He made an interesting case. So check that out. Vote while you're over there. Vote for WWE if you don't have a preference. If you have a preference, make your choice. But if you don't care, I'll solicit a vote for WWE. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it. But get out of here. Thank you so much for your time. You guys have a great week. Tomorrow, I almost forgot. Tomorrow, with the short day here, I think what we'll probably do is I'll throw just a quick video up on the YouTube channel instead of go live. We'll plan on, we'll just drop a little video for you guys on the recap. The markets be closing while you're in the halftime report. So Friday, yes, Friday we will be back to normal. Tomorrow, I think what I'll probably do is just make us a quick little rundown just to catch up with where everything is. If things go as I kind of expect, it's going to be very similar to what today is, but I don't know that, right? Sadly, I don't know the future. So we will not plan on going live here, but I'll get you a little something tomorrow afternoon to take a look at. Of course, since I won't see you again live, you guys have a fantastic holiday. Travel safe if you're doing so. Enjoy that little extra time off on the market. It's going to be strange, but we're back to work on Friday. So, yeah, Jimbo, we're going to be back on the grind on Friday. So check in on, on Friday morning, see where we're at with things. With that, guys, get out of here. Enjoy the coaches show here tonight, and I will see you live on, I guess, Friday. I'll probably see some of you guys on Twitter or in one of the shows before then. So happy 4th, everybody. Be safe. Have a good time, and I will see you on Friday. Bye, everybody.